Welcome to the new lesson. In this lesson, we will work with an animated line. We will build a new block. This block is dynamic, unlike the previous one, which is static. So the difference between a static and a dynamic block is as follows. For a static block, we have a set of parameters that we define in the admin panel. For example, here we set the title, description, and link. And on the website, we receive this data. If we want to change them, we will need to go to this page and edit this data. Until we edit them, they will not change on the website. This is called static, a static block. Hereof was a static block. For this line, each one, this picture means a separate game. Games will be added as products in a special WooCommerce plugin. Therefore, for the page, we will create a block where we specify that we want to fetch games, meaning the last 10 games, or just some conditions for filtering, random some 10 games, or from a specific category. But the point is that we will have a block where we simply specify that we want to take games, but the games themselves will be added elsewhere. And this block should be dynamic so that we don't have to visit this page every time, but simply add different games in WooCommerce and they will automatically appear on the front end. To load depending on the conditions we set for implementing this block, first of all, we need to create a separate branch. In the previous lesson, we stopped at the main branch. So we write the command git checkout bs -b and the name for the new p block. We can call it games line or animated line. Let's logically name it the games line block, since this line is with video games. So I'm using a shortcut to avoid writing two commands as in previous lectures. Now I have created a new branch and switched to it, meaning I am currently in this branch. We will need a new block for writing code, so I'll take the contact block. I use Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V, meaning I copy it and paste it into the src directory and rename it. I do this while the compiler is not running. If the compiler is running, it constantly starts compiling and creates clutter of this kind. Therefore, I usually create the directory first, edit it with some basic things, and only then turn on the compiler. So, the games block. I will copy the games line slug. I go into the jest block. The ID, I change its name. The category, we will use our own. I think we created a separate category. I don't remember, but I think we created, a widget. Yes, game store. So let's edit it for the hero block as well. Also the game store category, and assign this category to our games line. And at the same time, I will also change the contact block since I use it. As a starter set of files, I will often copy-paste for new blocks. So we change that there too and close these files. Let's change the description. Our description will be speaker, anime. This line with games is like that. Then, the icon. You can leave the icon from May for all blocks. I usually edit it rarely, but if there's a need to edit, it means Gutenberg has a loading feature, meaning it displays all icons in a separate component. You can view their list at the following link, and you can choose an icon that is more thematically specific to your block. Let's try this icon purely for testing purposes. Columns. And let's assign it to our new block. Yep. And then we'll move on nicely. Again, we'll have to quickly delete the comment as well. I'll delete them in the contact block since, as I said, I will copy often these source files. Here we can immediately do a return, since we won't be using safe.js. This is dynamic in general. We choose with And here we also remove, so we cleaned for now our game slime. And let's also clean the contact while we're here. Otherwise, we'll have to repeat this for each block, which is not very good. We lose time. If I set dynamic classes, so everything is fine. Let's close all files and carefully open only ours. So, for the game store, we created these JES. For now, we are not adding any fields. The next step is to register, meaning these JES will be used in our admin panel for adding some configuration fields for Sages. As I already mentioned, we will not use it, meaning it is not a static block. Instead, we will use a callback in PHP, so let's go register this block and assign it this callback. Registration, I remind you, is done in the PHP file. This is the main file of our current plugin. We copy the register block type function for registration, providing the ID we need. Games line. Next, this is the method for registering static blocks when you need to register a dynamic one. We must pass an array with settings, and in this array we must pass the render callback. Therefore, we provide an array as a second parameter. In this array we will have the render callback. And as the name for this callback, we use any designation. That is, you are free to define it yourself. I will probably just call it view, the games line block. Next, for this, we need to create this callback, essentially this function, and in the body of this function, in the template, we can already use any loop, any piece, and that is as it is usually done in classic themes. But I will not register this function here. I will make a separate file for it, maybe even a separate directory. But for now, temporarily, I have placed this file in the root of the plugin. Therefore, I create in the root a blocks file. And in this PHP file, I register this callback. For now, it's empty. Next, we return to the main PHP file. We need to load this file. Let's use, with the help of require once, specify the path, use gear, path, and the path to the file. We have blocks, HP. Next, these things, if we need to use them in other files, can be added to a separate constant. Usually in my plugins, they are always in constants for this. The value of the constant will be, and its name will be blocks, game store, path. Make sure that we haven't used this constant elsewhere. In the plugin, no. What we used there, I remember, we registered there too, and we had game store there. But here we exclude the word blocks. And when we have this constant, we can use it in other files. It will be directly referred to in it. This value is more convenient and correctly. Next, let's go to our backend. Let's add a return of such a piece of HTML, just to purely check if it works for us. So we did the registration. Files, we made ours. We can run the compiler. We need to go into the directory and only then run it. entered the directory we need, npm run start. The compiler has started. Next, we need to go to the admin panel, edit the page, and add this new block to the page. Let's first look at the categories. Here it is in the category. An icon quite we said used for it. But if you remember, we said this icon. Apparently, some version is outdated. That is, there are some old icons here, because now I see a completely different icon on the screen. There might also be a possibility that Gutenberg uses these icons somewhere in the components, inside the components. And specifically for this display, it might be using another family. We'll figure out this issue later as well. We add a block to the page, save it, go to the main page and refresh. And here we see GamesLine. That is information from PHP. While in the admin panel, we see information from the JavaScript, from the edit.js file when developing static blocks. Usually I write in edit.js first, create the admin panel, and only then in save.js. When working with dynamic content, it's the opposite. I first do the PHP part and only then the admin part. We will work in the block with PHP, but we need to get these products. We don't have anything on the site yet. We don't even have an online store installed, so let's do that. Let's go to the plugins. Remember that our structure is built in such a way that we need to set these directories with add plugins in the source code. But if I install it through the admin panel, it will physically be in this project. And when I send it to the repository, it will be saved there, until I delete it from the local machine and send the changes again. We use a add new plugin type, the keyword WooCommerce. The online store will be built on it. A very popular plugin. Click the install button. The plugin is installed. Click activate to activate it. If we go to our code, we immediately see that more than 4,000 files have been added to our Git. I specify that some actions are happening because we have a WooCommerce directory in the plugins directory. I suggest now to commit these changes so they go to the repository and don't linger. Here is this big mark. And we'll also publish the branch on GitHub, since we created it locally. Great. Now our changes, the entire new branch has gone to GitHub. Let's install this plugin. We don't install anything additional. Enable our store. This it's enough to be able to add a few products. Next we go to Figma to save these images. I select an image. I am currently in development mode. Here is its original size. This is the size, but I export them at 2x larger because they will be used on other pages and there a larger size is needed. Therefore, you can also immediately increase the export, maybe even to 3x, when exporting an image. And I'll add the first test product. I'll take test data. I select this image, add it. This will be a virtual product. It will be available only upon download. I'll specify some price. For now, that's enough. Meaning I need to publish demo content now to have data that I will load into this dynamic block. Here is my first product. I will now pause and save the remaining images and add separate products for them here so that we can work with them further. In total, I added 13 posts. I assigned images to all, some are repeated. Let's move to the body of our block, and here we will create dynamic displays of these products. We will use AI to generate this part of the body for us. So from all the generated code, we need just this loop. We copy this loop, close it, add it here, and look carefully. The rest of the code I covered is just registration of the block, but we did this elsewhere. It's already done. I very often use AI for generating loops. That is, writing such pieces of code is always tedious. So it's easier to use AI to start specifying them. Set the product. This is specifically setting the products from you come as a we specify the value of 12 products. We will later make this value dynamic, extracting it from the admin panel, then specify some order. By the way, I forgot to specify what HTML body I want, since I will be using a swiper slider, so let's edit it now here. I usually use thematic games, query, thematic names for variables. So we'll edit it. The loop itself, if we have posts, we display such a container by classes. I also use games. Line container. I need another wrapper inside. Remember, we already made a slider on the swipe. Therefore, we use a div with the class swiper. Rapierer. Closing div. We move it down here. And we have a loop while which builds the body, accesses the product, and takes its image. Next, let's do the following. We will also display a link so that you can click on this image and go to the product. Not such a closing, but such a... So we added the link. You know, guys, what we will need when we wrote the previous block, it was like this. And the block about everything. It generated classes for the container for the parent block. Therefore, we should set the same for this dynamic block so that the classes attach both here and there. Therefore, on our container, we will have another one. The container the main one starts, does not end here, and at the same time we do a reset, returning this return. Only one type disappears. That is, essentially, we have a loop. We will return HTML, and therefore we return it. This needs to be done dynamically in PHP. I use such concatenation in slicing, adding the function getBlockWrapper attributes. So this function will generate, meaning it's an equivalent in PHP. of this function. So it seems to look okay. Let's add a variable here. We don't have attributes yet. We haven't set them, but we will set them now. I'm afraid that this function won't work without a global attribute variable, but maybe it will. I'm not sure what's in the attribute, even if we don't set anything. If there is any data there, I've never checked the value. Let's go to the site and refresh the page. We have a critical error. Let's see what we did wrong. Well, we probably made a mistake here because the name is incorrect, and this function could have caused us a critical error. Yes, wonderful. Now we have these products on the page that you can click on, and the product itself will open. The next step is to style them to match this style. And of course, initialize the slider. I don't like the product class here. I'll call it game item. Also, this is our internal class inside swiper wrapper. So we will add swiper slide as well. That is essentially when we build a swiper slider, we need these two classes, but also some parent class to which we will attach this initialization. Let's return to the code block game item line and go to the JS file. Remember, we connect JS to this file, which loads on the front part. We'll write initialization. And attach it to this selector. Set the attributes, meaning our slider will be cyclic, so the loop, not do, will be set to rotate continuously, then autoplay. We will set so this slider, guys, it won't change manually. It will always rotate. Once the page loads, it should start immediately. For this reason, I set the delay to 1 and disable on interaction false. Also, slide preview automatically. Here in Dynipro and load. Speed 3500, and I'll set the cursor so it can also be moved with the mouse. Therefore, grab cursor true. Next, we move to the CSS code. In the CSS code, for CS we will need the parent class. Here it is. You see, it is added to the main block of the function we added. Next, the container with the slider itself. What should have a width of 100%? Everything that goes beyond the edges we cover. And we will set its position to relative. Next, inside we have the swiper, who should also have the following styles. Display, flex. And in the transition, set linear, so that it smoothly rotates in a circle. That is, it doesn't shift with a pause one slide at a time, but smoothly rotates in a circle. Therefore, we will make a transition transform 3500 milliseconds. Linear, and also set the transition timing function to linear. Now it will smoothly rotate. In a loop in a circle, refresh the page and observe the result. The page has loaded, the slider has started. But the style is insufficient. Now we will refine it, but it works exactly as we need. We add styles to the game item. So here, as you can see, we have the size 267 by 403. Next, position, relative. We have a border radius here. Eight pixels. We have margins on the sides. Here is a gap at the parent. We select this section, look at 8 pixels. So we can make this as a marker with 4 pixels margin, left 4 pixel marker right, 4 pixels. It seems sufficient. Next, for the image that we have inside, we will add object fit, cover and width height 100%. That is, essentially, we set a static size for the container and the image will be overlaid as a wrapper on top. And it doesn't matter what images we load. They don't need to be cropped to a specific size. In this block, they will be overlaid on top, like a cover. It looks wonderful. Already better. Let's simply add overflow hidden, because this border radius or border radius should be added to the image itself and not to the container. It's not visible to us. The next thing, we have the edges cut off here. The parent container has a maximum width here. You see? It needs to be reset. So it needs to be reinforced. That is, I added this value and it wasn't enough. Let's reinforce it using this class. So in JSON we have a variable for content width, which we set 1540, and WordPress. It applies it to the blocks. It can be changed in JSON, but then there's no guarantee that some pages built on default blocks won't stretch. You'll have to add some styles for them. It's better to override for ours. So essentially, we will know that for our styles, this kind of override is needed. And in the parent class, we use a group. There, remember there were just paddings. Let's fix those paddings right away. Right now, as well, I'll just copy the code from the previous block and add it here too. According to the logic now, it will take up the full width nicely. But not everything yet, because there's just a margin of error here. Let's see what this is related to. Yes, it's related to the fact that we set it to 100%, but we also somehow invent these edges on the sides, and it's not enough for us here unless we use the call function, which is % plus twice. This variable, or just 100 viewports, then it will be resolved. And now we get two sliders next to each other in the middle here. It's just that this one is constantly spinning. You can stop it like this. Yes, you can do it with your hands. And I win. One thing I don't like is the size of the image. It's clearly visible that it overlays not the way we need it to. And the poor quality is due to the fact that the cameras have their default sizes, and it kind of loads a placeholder, and then we stretch and expand this placeholder with CSS. We should have set it to the original size. Therefore, either some other large, for example, it all depends on the tasks of your project. But I will set it to the original, so full size now. I'm looking for where I output this image. You see, essentially we are creating a product object through the function VC, get product. And the getImage method is already being used. So this getImage method also accepts the image size slug. I can set it through full size original images. And ideally now, this problem will disappear. Much better. Both the scale and quality look really good. So our online store, you see, is up and running. Notice the header, ours is up and running. When WooCommerce was activated, it added menu items to the header that just ruined our styles. But it's not a big deal. We either remove them, or if they are required to work, we need to add additional styles to fix this issue. Let's go in and fix it now. Open the tree. It will be more convenient this way. And here they are. That is the minicon. At this stage, we don't need these functions here. And in the navigation, we'll just remove this whole batch. Refresh the page. The header has returned to its original position. Next, we'll work on the admin part. Let's go back to the page. Currently, we don't have any options. When we select a block, nothing happens. We use this value in the dynamic block. We could set it through the admin panel so that the administrator can specify how many products to load. 50 games, or only 12, or only 10. Enhance these blocks here. For example, specify the product category or maybe some type. But at this stage, we don't need it. That is, I need it. Yes, I will now set this field to demonstrate to you. But for other blocks, we will make such filters. In the end, maybe, if necessary, we will add it. But for now, these are just basic options. I will repeat many times that it doesn't make sense, so we won't add it to this specific block. Filtering options in the admin panel. Let's go to the Philly. Edit JS. Or rather, let's first go to the JSON block where we will need attributes. So we add the attribute parameter in the attributes section. We will have one parameter, we will call it count. And the type of this parameter will be number. By default, we will set it to 12. Next, you edit it as well. We will retrieve it. Account. Then we will display it. What we will have we need to generate a sidebar for this field. In this, we will import them. The body panel needs text control. Inspector control from the block editor. Inspector control. And let's go. Very easy. We are making the second, essentially the third block we have in the admin panel, see? Divided into two sections. One section is responsible for the left part, which is displayed right here. And this section, which we encompass the entire range of controls. It is responsible for components related to various fields, with different toolbars that are displayed here in this sidebar. Using panel body, we create a separate section in the sidebar. Let's call it simply sitting. It's not necessary for us to specify the name of this block. We will close the panel body. So here, the autocomplete added this immediately using the translation function among. I won't delete this, I'll leave it as is in principle for proper development so that it is internationalized. It should be done exactly like this. That is, all strings within the code should be wrapped with this function. And in the panel body, we already used the text control. I'll use autocomplete to add, that is, I am adding the field count. And I take its value from the default attributes, which is 12. But when I change it, I use set attribute, change its value in this file. Now, I refresh the page. In the admin section, I select this block and I can edit this value. 12 was loaded immediately because I set it as the default. Let's set it to 10 and save it. After installing the site on the local machine, started working noticeably slower. Maybe it's temporary. Maybe not. Refreshing. Selecting the block. The value was not saved. The saving doesn't work because the text control component works with string types. It returns a string while we specify the type as number in the attributes for this variable count, and it simply cannot save it. So we need to, when saving here, in other words, convert it to an integer type, then it will work. So let's write this statement as follows. We will have some value here in Ilya and for the count variable. Use the parse function, int. We will pass our Ilya 10 to it. If what we input does not match the string, it won't be able to convert it. We'll just add a 0. Now, there's more logic in our code. Refresh the page. Select the block. Change its value. Save. Refresh the page. Look, now the saving works perfectly. Next, don't forget that here we have dynamics, meaning in the oven pp, we need to return to the oven file. In this attribute, we store everything that the article passes. Initially, the lesson explained that I don't know if, besides our alpha and beta keys, anything else is stored in it. Let's display it on the screen now. Right here you can see, we'll definitely display it here. Let's see if there are any parameters besides our account, but I think it's only our expected attributes. Yes, indeed, only our beta key. There's simply nothing else in it, so to speak. We have this value here, dynamically the stoves, and we can replace these 12 by referring to the attribute variable by the key count, meaning the keys that we set in the block here, they are also the keys in this array. Okay, well, I just set it to 10, meaning from the admin panel values. I'll refresh it, and it just changes to 2. It will load fewer blocks like this. For us, nothing essentially changes. And the last step we need to take now is to display these blocks here. There are two ways, quick and short. The point is that we need to build this entire block in JavaScript and React. That is essentially do this work again, but now in JavaScript. It takes up much more space, more lines of code. You need to write it to get this data here in the admin panel. But there's no need to do this because we waste time. I never do this for my projects. I either create a stub or use a component that renders that callback, but in the admin panel. Specifically, for this block, I will create a stub. What is a stub? A stub is these images saved as one screenshot, and it is shown instead of this text. We don't need to see these real elements here in the admin panel. We need to have a block to click on with the mouse and have the ability to edit some data here. Of course, you can approach it with the method and display dynamic content here using JavaScript. I demonstrated this in the Gutenberg course. Be sure to watch it if you haven't returned to it. But I won't be doing that here now. It's very time-consuming and unnecessary. So what is needed? We need to select this block. We see it here. We need to export it. Next, to ourselves. In Games line, we create the EMG catalog. We drag this image here. Here it is. And here we need to display it. We will show our image here. Load it from placeholder. And you can set some alt text, or you can choose not to set anything for the admin panel. Next, we will create this placeholder here. We specify the path to our image. Only it's not actually placeholder, but the default PNG image file. Here is our image. Now it's very easy to click on it and access the options. It doesn't make sense to load and modify options here because they are dynamic. That is, we do not add content here. This block is intended to indicate that we want to show the last one. And the content itself is generally added to the commerce on another page and on the site. They will be loaded according to the specified parameters. In principle, this block is implemented. What was planned to be shown at this stage, we have implemented. These changes can be committed and we can move on. This concludes this lesson. See you in the next session.